Thank you, Cameron. I want to say thank you. I have one of my teammates here, Jermaine. So, Jermaine, I want to say thank you for being here as well. And I want to give a hand to those who put together that good food in the back and served us tonight. So, can we give a hand to our folks? We got some grown folks drinks back there, so we appreciate that. We always appreciate that. And so, yes, Cameron, I just want to say thank you. And for you and your entire team for hosting this wonderful event. It sounds like you all have a busy week ahead, full of events, workshops, and competitions, pitch competitions. And so I'm an athlete or a former athlete, so I love a bit of healthy competition, especially as a Steelers fan. We got a big win. Okay, there we go, Jay. We got a big win against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens last week. So Jay, right? So me and Jay will be celebrating after this. But my name is Isaiah Green, and I am the Assistant Deputy Director and Regional Advisor for the California Small Business Advocate. And I'm here today to get this economic development, innovation, entrepreneurial ecosystem party started.
Yeah!
Thank you, Jermaine. Can y'all tell I worked on that? It took me a while to get that one together. But a little bit about the Office of Small Business Advocate. So we are dedicated to supporting more than 4.1 million entrepreneurs in the state. And it's our office responsibility to effectively produce and share programs that will make it easier for equitable business owners in every zip code to create wealth, and not only just for themselves, but for their families and their communities. And so the mission of the Office of Small Business Advocate is to support California dreamers to start, to scale, and to succeed as small business owners, employers, and essentially the drivers of our California economy. And so how do we do that? We want to ensure equitable access to capital, markets, and networks. And so we aim to help democratize access to capital, diversify innovation economy, and drive economic mobility through entrepreneurship. And I had the opportunity to meet some real cool entrepreneurs, Justin and his crew. Hey, it was nice meeting you all, and I look forward to meeting some more entrepreneurs tonight. And so today, let's focus on the innovation part of our economy. So I'd like to share some fun facts, and I hope that you all will get excited about these facts as well. So California, if you didn't know, is the 5th largest economy in the world. Okay, we got someone who's excited to be in California right here. The 5th largest economy in the world. And our per capita GDP outstrips all other countries ahead of us on that list. Over the past 25 years, California's economy has grown faster than the nation overall, at 111% versus 75%. And it outpaces all other large states on a per capita basis, which means that we are the most fertile soil for business development here in the country. Inc. magazine's annual rankings of the top 5,000 companies for revenue growth over the past 3 years included 672 California businesses, nearly 200 more than the next closest state. We have the most manufacturing businesses and the most manufacturing jobs of any state in the nation. And so here's one that I love, and I hope that you love too as an entrepreneur, that we have the lowest first-year failure rate for small businesses in the country. I don't think that clap was loud enough, so I'm gonna say it one more time. We have the lowest first-year failure rate for small business in the entire country. Come on, guys. Come on. We talk about ecosystem and partnerships. That is why. And the resiliency of our small business entrepreneurs. I will never forget that. So so we have the largest small business community in the nation. 99% of all businesses here in California are small businesses. And out of that 4.1 million small business owners, nearly half of entrepreneurs are risking it all are women, veterans, and people of color, and also with disabilities. So studies after studies shows that supporting these businesses run by underserved communities is where we can experience the most growth as an economy and be on our way to the 4th largest economy in the world. And because it's truth, among those underserved businesses, a very high percentage are non-employer firms. So this means that their revenue is capped by their workforce capacity. So you may be asking yourself, why? why aren't our businesses able to scale? Does anybody have an answer to that? Any thought? Why aren't our businesses able to scale? Come on now. Somebody's awake. Access to capital. We found that it's very simple. It's access to capital. So whether you're trying to build your business to meet demands or trying to deliver on a contract, you need access to capital. So we know that big businesses are not using their own money to scale. They're getting favorable loans and maintaining their cash so it can grow, while simultaneously using other people's capital to invest in their new business ideas. So we asked the question, why can't we? Why can't we? So recently the barriers were lending institutions. So we see a bias in the decision-making process meant that underserved communities were not able to access capital. And if they were at a much less favorable interest rate than our counterparts. So we have to decided to do something about it. So thanks to an infusion of funds from the federal government, we have reached agreements to provide government-backed loans that will greatly increase not only the amount of dollars available, but also the number of people that can have access to these dollars, not only just to start, but to scale their businesses. So we've created a network of lenders as well as business advisors to ensure that entrepreneurs not only have the most favorable rates possible, but are advised on how much they should even be going for, or if they even need a loan at all. So all of this is part of SCALE. And you know the government loves acronyms, right? And so SCALE means my train of thought: success, access to capital, leadership, and entrepreneurs. All these acronyms kind of throw me off a little bit, so bear with me. Because we are in the business of ecosystem building, all of us here are a part of that ecosystem. So no ecosystem conversation is complete unless we talk about inclusion and opportunity, specifically the opportunity to compete in high growth, high reward industries that make up our state's innovation economy. So when we think about innovation economy, right, it's a phrase that's popular amongst economists and policymakers. Because we are great innovators here in the state of California, I like to call it our secret sauce. It's kind of what we do. This phrase, the innovation economy, encapsulates the notion that new ideas from entrepreneurs replace existing products and processes from established businesses. It is used to describe not the specific service of a single industry, but the creative ability of a population and ecosystem that can empower that creativity. Silicon Valley, of course, we all have heard of Silicon Valley, right? Silicon Valley is the prime example, the epitome of the power of an innovation economy. So the dominance is why the Bay Area, SAC, Los Angeles, San Diego remain on top every list of the startup economies across all measures, whether you're talking about the number of startups, IPOs, patents filed, all of that. And it's why we have an emerging community of innovation hubs, like here in Sacramento. So let's make no mistake, we all need this activity to keep going. And that's why you all are here. That's why we all are here. And we can be proud of the success of specific individuals and the entrepreneurship that drives the California dream. So here at Cal OSBA, we like to support our individuals as well through our Accelerate California Inclusive Innovation Hub. We like to call them our iHubs. If you haven't heard of our iHubs, please visit our website to learn more. We've even got some exciting funding opportunities. Who likes funding opportunities? Okay, we got a few of y'all. We have some exciting funding opportunities that will specifically support innovation of small businesses. So we recently have been approved for about $10 million in funding through the Small Business Opportunity Program called the SBOP. This was a competitive process that we were given the nod for our proposal of a new initiative for procurement and innovation capital and leadership for entrepreneurs. And so this new funding would allow us to support businesses looking for what we're calling mature capital and or mature companies. And so it addresses two major market opportunities. One, state procurement contracts. Two, high growth, high wage innovation sectors, which of course, California leads the nation. So one aspect of the program is we'll target business competing for state contracts, assist them with obtaining bonding, insurance, and loan capital needed to secure contracts with local, state, or federal jurisdictions, and even private entities as well. This funding will help us better address the disparities and gaps in the venture capital dollars on diverse business funders and high growth, high wage innovator sectors, and strengthen existing pathways and also create new ones. Cal OSBA also plans to use this funding to provide 5,000 additional business owners with one-on-one counseling and training. And we know how important it is in any life cycle of your business, how important that one-on-one training is at no cost. Our office anticipates developing at least 200 training events and supporting eligible beneficiaries to obtain a capital infusion of $250 million in total through combination of non-dilutive capital, bonding capital, debt capital, as well as angel and venture capital. So I want to take a moment to acknowledge those of us who have experienced some of these realities when we're talking about access to capital. Some of those who have been made feel like they were just imagining certain things, or you've had to go through this experience knowing that you've had to be better or outshine those who have had more access to you. And we understand that the numbers don't lie. And the numbers say that it is time for a change. The numbers say that we as a state, if we want to keep growing, we need to involve more people in the opportunity for economic mobility made possible through entrepreneurship. So before I end and pass the torch to Cam, I'd like to close with a call of action, all right? My call is that you join us in being advocates for small businesses by sharing this information that you see today. I don't have a link up there, but I will pass out my cards. We want you all to share this information with your networks and your resources. And I hope that today you felt inspired by some of the information that you heard, some of the stats that you heard, and that you would feel invited to learn more. We hope that you and your entrepreneur journey, you continue to scale and you continue to succeed. And lastly, I hope that you feel confident in knowing that us, as California small business advocates, we have your back and we are here to support you in whatever phase of your business. So again, my name is Isaiah Green. Cam, thank you for having me, and I appreciate being here. Thank you.
All right, and thank you, Isaiah. We appreciate the words and sharing all the resources available. So if you share those links, I'll be sure to get out. Since you all registered, I'll be able to send those links your way and make sure that they're accessible to the entrepreneurs here, but also for us resource providers to spread those resources around. So with that, next I want to welcome up Victor Huang, the founder and CEO of Right to Start, who will share a little bit more about the amazing work that they're doing at Right to Start, and then also just how to build a thriving regional ecosystem to support entrepreneurs and founding. So let's welcome Victor on up to the stage. So thank you, Victor, for being here.
Thank you, Cameron. Do you all appreciate what you have here in Sacramento with this gentleman in the center? Global Entrepreneurship Week is all over the world. It's like over 100 countries. There's thousands of events happening. This man has won a global award for the kind of stuff that's happening here and putting this on. So Cameron Law, thank you for your leadership here. I was just up here a few months ago. Some of you were here. Hello, Laura, good to see you. I drove across the country, starting in Southern California, all the way to Washington, D.C. I wanted to take the pulse of America in this election year and try to get a sense of where the entrepreneurial ecosystem was. Where were entrepreneurs? Where was America? It was a very educational journey, very inspirational, very re-inspiring in many ways. I'm going to share a little bit about that. But first, I'll give just a quick bit about my background and what we're doing here at Right to Start. So my name is Victor Huang. I have been involved in entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship support for 25 years now. At some point, you last long enough, you become the dinosaur that the young folks look up to, and I'm starting to get to that point. But I've been involved in this work for a long time. I started businesses. Entrepreneurship is worth parting over anytime. I've been involved in starting businesses, selling businesses, shutting them down, running entrepreneurial support organizations, working with policymakers, working in economic development, doing global development, working with institutions like the World Bank, helping shape entrepreneurial economies. I've basically been in the business of economic growth through entrepreneurship and innovation. And before I did this work, I was at the Kauffman Foundation, which has been the world's leading philanthropy and entrepreneurship for about 3 decades, and I ran their entrepreneurship department for a number of years. And that's how I started to work with Cameron and got to see some of the fantastic work happening here in Sacramento. And so I've gotten to see entrepreneurship in a very unique way. I've had this perspective of seeing what's been happening across the country. And I've seen a lot, and I can share a lot. And what I wanted to do is to share a little bit about what I've seen, both through this work I've done, as well as through the cross-country trip I took. I got into this work in the very beginning because my parents had to start a business just to be able to afford to put me through college. So they came to the US as immigrants. They believed in the American dream. And when I was lucky enough to get into Harvard as a young man, they couldn't afford to send me. So one, they had to take a second mortgage out of their house. So they put everything they had on the line. And the second thing they did was to start a business on the side, which started on the weekends, became the evenings, became the week, became a business, became full-time, and eventually made enough to put myself and my sister through college and even build a little retirement for themselves. So I've seen the power of entrepreneurship to change lives, but I've also seen how hard it was. I remember the difficulty of what my parents had to do, the sleepless nights, the anxiety within the family, the challenges of how do you actually build this, from the simplest things like, how do you fill out this form again? What's an LLC again? What's a C Corp? What's an S Corp? How does accounting work again? How do you hire people? What can you do to build business? All these different things that once you've been through the cycle a few times, it all seems pretty second nature, but for people starting the first time, it's the most terrifying thing you can imagine. And so I've seen the struggles of what that looks like. And I realized it doesn't need to be that way. In fact, that was one of the things I saw when I finally went to Harvard and saw the way that we study economics and the way we study economic growth. It actually doesn't take into account folks like my parents, the ordinary people trying to make something of themselves, trying to build a better life, trying to create a little bit of wealth, trying to create jobs. That kind of exposure, the voices of the ordinary people don't reach up to the people that run the system or run the economy very much. And so I really have spent my life really trying to change that. And so that's led to work to really try to expand economic opportunity by helping unleash the power of ordinary people and ordinary citizens, because ultimately that's where the power comes from. And so that led to all this work I've done over the years. And now with Right to Start, this is an effort we launched about 4+ years ago. And the idea of Right to Start is that the voice of the entrepreneur is missing in civic life. If you think about the issues that we talk about in public life, they tend to be issues that ignore the heroic efforts of ordinary people trying to build something, create something new, start new businesses. And so that voice needs to be lifted up. So in Right to Start now, in 4 years, we are now operating we have roots in 40 states across the country. We've had 15 state legislatures introduce over 40 Right to Start Act bills based off of our policy recommendations. We've had 5 states implementing these right now, including 2 states that have passed laws completely, 3 states that have done it through executive action in the executive branch. And these laws basically tackle this issue of how do we get entrepreneurship lifted up in civic life. And so in Nevada, in Missouri, we passed Right to Start Act bills that have been signed into law by the governors. In states like Michigan, in Kansas, in New Mexico, and now a bunch of other states are starting to raise their hands and say they want to do this too. And this creates an Office of Entrepreneurship that puts someone in charge of taking care of entrepreneurs. It starts tracking the issues they're dealing with. It makes recommendations to the governor and the legislature on how do you improve the environment for entrepreneurs. It starts opening up government contracts, starts looking at finding ways to make capital more accessible, really putting someone in charge of the issue, because it's just like in business. If no one's in charge, then nothing happens. And so that's the problem in entrepreneurship, is that we've never had anyone in charge. So this road trip I took, I'll talk about this road trip and sort of where the country is. We just went through a thing in this country a couple weeks ago. And the thing about this road trip was, what I found was there was this huge disconnect between what our leaders talked about and what ordinary people wanted. And that the ordinary people, when you read the news, you think this country, you hear this narrative of dysfunction and division and decline, and that is not untrue. There's plenty of that. But when you get out in the country, I drove from Southern California up through Fresno, Sacramento, through Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, down to DC. And what I found is that the people that are building the future are the entrepreneurs. They're busy at it. They're doing it right now. And they aren't waiting for permission. They're not waiting around for, help. They're just doing it because it needs to get done. And I found that, one, very re-energizing, but also I found it disconcerting that there was this disconnect, that you don't really hear about these issues, these stories, these concerns, the struggles of people trying to build stuff, trying to make things better in their communities, to create jobs for themselves, to create wealth for themselves and their communities and their families. You don't hear this very often in the narrative. And so we just got through this election, and this was a remarkable election for a bunch of reasons, but one of them, it was the most prominent that entrepreneurship as an issue has actually been in the national narrative. And that was on both sides, by the way, so I'm not going to even go into which side said what, but entrepreneurship, this idea that entrepreneurs can drive the future, are building the future, that we need entrepreneurs to be at the front of policy issues and thinking, from innovation, technology, and just ordinary everyday entrepreneurs. That was in the national presidential election. I do not recall a presidential election ever that has ever had entrepreneurship at that level. And what that speaks to me of is this, which is, I think the thing I picked up across this country is that this country is ready for a reboot. There's this sense that things are broken, this sort of narrative of things kind of divided and broken and paralyzed and gridlocked. It kind of ticks ordinary people off, because that's not who we are. Like, at the level of communities, of work happening in places like Sacramento, things happening at the state level, people are trying to get things done. And so that is actually what's going on. And so we as a country, we're a country of starters, builders, makers, innovators, doers. We just make stuff happen. We build stuff. That's kind of the quintessential idea of America as the startup nation, right? This was the startup nation that people ran to because they were trying to get away from places they couldn't do stuff. And so they came here to do stuff. And so it's still in the country. It's still very deep in the DNA of this country, which is this idea of entrepreneurialism. The entrepreneurial spirit is still very deep. Even if you're not starting a business today or tomorrow, you know people that are. You may be thinking of doing it yourself. In fact, the majority of Americans have thought about doing it at some point. And so it's something that's there. And most likely, you know several people that are doing it, especially people in this room. And so we have a chance now in this environment, in this country, to actually put entrepreneurship on the front burner, because entrepreneurs are the ones building the future. And it's our job to actually support the people that are building the future, because that's where this country wants to be and where the people want it to go. And so that's where we are. And so entrepreneurs matter, and I'm sure you all know this. The new businesses create almost all net job growth in an economy. So older businesses shed jobs over time. It's the young businesses that create new jobs. They raise incomes. Entrepreneurs make higher incomes over their lifetime, 10% higher incomes over their lifetime. Not in the short term. We know it's pretty rough in the early years, but over their lifetimes it does. They raise community wealth. So for every 1% increase in entrepreneurial activity in the micro business level, there's actually an almost $500 increase in average household income across an entire county. So there's a huge ripple effect in entrepreneurial activity. Entrepreneurs fight poverty. For every 1% increase in entrepreneurship, there's a 2% decrease in the poverty rate in a state. Powerful. And we also know entrepreneurs diversify the supply chains. We saw this during COVID when we ran out of stuff and we didn't know how to make stuff. It was the entrepreneurs that jumped in and said, well, we're going to start making these things. We're going to make hand sanitizer. We're going to make masks. The entrepreneurs are the ones helping us build the supplies that actually were able to fill the needs on all the different gaps that happened in the market. And so entrepreneurs, they create jobs, they raise incomes, they build community wealth, they fight poverty, yet we hardly hear it talked about. And so we need to elevate this issue up. We need to make it a thing again. And the job of those of us that are starting businesses, of course, is to make those businesses as successful as possible. But the entrepreneurs, those people that are doing it, need the help of all of us. That is what you can do to help an entrepreneur, from giving them a connection, being an early customer for a product, giving them feedback on something, introducing, opening a door, giving them a hug or a helping hand when they need it. All of that matters, and all of that is part of that ecosystem work. And so I encourage you to be part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, not just in Sacramento, but thinking about it writ large. That can we reboot America? Can we refound America again with that, tapping that deep entrepreneurial DNA that we already have, because we're trying to build the future. And so that's what we're going to be doing at Right to Start. I encourage you to join us in this effort. Righttostart.org. Go to the website. Please sign up. We don't spam you. If you sign up, we'll give you really good stuff on how to get involved, the news of the change that we're making across the country. And we do need your help. Moving into, in a little over a year from now, is America's 250th birthday. So we've got a chance to reboot this country, re-energize it, to kind of tap that deep DNA, it's a country that's always trying to get towards a more perfect union. It's not been perfect, granted. And I know, Chinese Americans like myself have gotten all sorts of stuff in this country, but this country aspires to something that no other country does, which it keeps aspiring towards making itself better. And so we've got a chance to do that, and the entrepreneurs are at the very front of this, and we have a job in our work here to be part of that and support them too. So thank you very much, Cameron. Thank you all for being part of this great work here. Happy Global Entrepreneurship.
Test. Get cool chairs.
All right, very good. We'll do our quick little fireside chat here. So thank you, Isaiah and Victor, for getting us started with some awesome content here. We have Jermaine Carter-Gibson, who's also with the California Office of the Small Business Advocate and is a local lead here in the Sacramento region. So we're excited to have you both up here. And sorry, I didn't pull up my questions while I was pulling up the chairs there.
So you're doing some zingers.
Zingers, they're tough ones for sure. Really, I think one of the things that I continually see is really this discussion around entrepreneurship and its connection to economic development. And when we look at resourcing these resources that support founders, and I love one of the quotes, I think it's a Right to Start one that maybe you've shared, was out of 1,000 of us, 3 start businesses, and what are those other 997 people doing to wrap around those starters? And so thinking about resourcing this entrepreneurship development, what can you share more about how regions can invest in building thriving regions for entrepreneurial activity? And maybe we'll start with you, Victor, and then we'll go to Jermaine.
The thing about entrepreneurship, which has made it so hard as a public policy issue, is that it's a 360-degree problem. And so what's happened so far in public policy is we've tended to target entrepreneurship support through very kind of narrow means. And so we'll say, all right, here's a mentoring program for you, which are great. Here's a capital fund we're going to create for this community, for this market, which is great. But all these, you think about the entrepreneurial journey itself, those of you that have been on it, everything hits you, from the way the tax system's set up, to the regulatory system, to the capital systems, to healthcare, to the educational system, to childcare systems, to government contracting, to the way economic development funding flows, to the way workforce funding flows. It's just on and on. There's so many things that affect the entrepreneurial process. And so the way to really tackle this now, and this is what we've been trying to do at Right to Start, is to think of it as a 360-degree problem, which is you cannot tackle entrepreneurship issues through point solutions. You actually have to tackle it as a holistic problem that affects all of society, because everything can be entrepreneurial if we do that. So the way to help is actually to start talking about these issues in a more public, vigorous way. And so this idea, I'll give you one example. This came out of my road trip. After I left here, I was up in Portland, Oregon, and someone started talking about their home mortgages. And I realized I'd had that problem too, because I was trying to refinance at a time when I was being entrepreneurial, and I couldn't even refinance to get a lower rate because I didn't have a W-2. And so this is like, and I could pay cash. It wasn't even a problem. I had the cash to pay the home off. I just liked the lower interest rate, and I thought it'd be better for everybody if, I could pay a lower interest rate. But I couldn't even do that because I didn't have a W-2. So the system is built around a W-2 20th century industrial economy. And so we've got to start tackling this stuff, from things like home mortgage discrimination, basically against entrepreneurs. We need to count your 1099s, your LLC income, all those things that don't count in home mortgages right now, the way childcare systems work, how, you cannot deduct childcare as a self-employment expense right now, even though a big company that runs a childcare center for its employees can fully deduct those expenses, right? So we have this imbalance. And so we have to start tackling all these issues. So talk about it. And then if you've got issues like this, childcare issues, healthcare issues, contracting issues, capital issues, talk to your leaders, whether it's, your people running your city or your county or your state or your federal folks, just to say, this is an issue. This matters. You don't hear about it because entrepreneurs are usually too busy, with our noses to the grindstone building something to talk about these things. But we have to talk about them, because if we don't talk about them, America is one of these squeaky wheel countries. If you don't make noise, no one cares. So we need more squeaky wheels around entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
This could be our squeaky wheel right here. So also we'll turn it down to you, Drew.
Yeah, so I agree. But before we go into that, I've got to say, I'm a Sac State alum. And when I was here, this didn't exist, right? I met the mother of my children right outside of this library. And so the fact that this exists here and the work that you and your team are doing is absolutely incredible. So before I answer any question, I want to make sure to highlight that and highlight what's happening here today, for sure. But to build on what was already said, if you haven't read Victor's book, he's mentioned the ecosystem in like a rainforest, right? And this is kind of how we have been approaching ecosystem building in our office. And so we built what's called the Scale Network, where Isaiah mentioned it already, success, capital access, and leadership for entrepreneurs. And this is over 122 centers across the state of different types, right? So you have small business development centers, you have women business centers, you have veteran outreach centers, you have the excess that are focused on state contracting, federal contracting, right? And you have a group of nonprofits. And it's our intention to meet you where you are, right? And it's very important that we meet folks where they are. And that's from a information perspective. And that's also from a geographic perspective, right? And so when we did our innovation hubs, we've got 13 hubs across the state. And I think one of our challenges is, and I think everyone needs to pay attention to this, is that there are barriers to access to some of these hubs, right? I'm from Sacramento. I've lived in every underserved community that you can live in this city, from Del Paso Heights to Oak Park to Meadowview to Citrus Heights, wherever it was cheap at, that's where we lived at, right? And if I hadn't gone to Sac State, then I wouldn't have any visibility into Sac State, right? And as I do outreach in these communities today, there can be a barrier to what's going on in this amazing place, right? And so it's up to us to spread the word, to get that information out, and to let folks know that this exists, that they're welcome here, right? And that's the only way that we're going to be able to diversify the innovation economy. When we talk about diversification, we're talking about the owners themselves, right? And we're also talking about the industries that they are in, right? So it's not just about artificial intelligence where all the money's going, right? We're talking about agriculture, we're talking about beauty, we're talking about innovation in all sectors that we work in this state, right? And so it's very important that we as a community get that information out to connect folks to resources.
So the next question I have here, I think oftentimes, we have a ton of resource providers and supporters of entrepreneurs in this room, and we kind of think of like what's right in front of us. Obviously, it's usually more accessible if it's in our region or in our community, but I think you both offer a great perspective of that. There's resources outside of it, and I'm looking like right across 1 Million Cups, which is a program we run here, but it's also a national program. Would love for you, Victor, maybe to share from like your national network and perspective, like what are some resources or programs entrepreneurs in this space and or resource providers can tap into, and then maybe at the state level where we might be able to plug into some of those networks. And then after that, we'd love to hear if there's any questions for them, and then we'll get into our lightning talks.
Yeah, there are so many resources now for entrepreneurs that weren't around before. A big part of the challenge, as you were saying, is around knowledge, awareness, and people just don't even know it's there. And so I think 1 million cups, is everyone here already familiar with 1 million cups? Not everyone's familiar with it. Okay, so let me ask Laura. 1 million cups is a really cool national program that got started, I don't know, 14, 15 years ago in Kansas City at the Kauffman Foundation, where they just brought in a couple of entrepreneurs and said, how can we help you? And the entrepreneurs would share what they're working on, and people there would try to help out. And it caught on. They kept doing it week after week. Then other cities started to copy it. Went up to Fargo, North Dakota, went to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Des Moines, and then it just spread. And now it's like 150 communities across the country where people get together every week or a month and ask entrepreneurs, show what they're doing, and people ask, how can we as a community help you? And that's what they do here. And it's a remarkable thing. And in Fargo, North Dakota, they get 150 people every week to show up to meet their entrepreneurs. It's ridiculous. In fact, the new nominee for the Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum, is the governor of North Dakota. He actually launched one of his companies at 1 million cups. And so it's actually been, and he tears up at 1 million cups. He's actually on record saying he cries when they ask that question, how can we help you as a community? So it's a powerful tool. And so I would say those 1 million cups here in Sacramento, but also across the country. And if you go on their website, you can find, if you show up on a Wednesday, you can find 1 million cups events all over the country to help out. And maybe the final thing I'll say is, and this was something Steve Jobs used to talk about, when he called it Bill Hewlett when he was like 12 years old, about looking for parts for his startup company. Actually, he was just doing radio electronics, and he asked for some parts on radio electronics, and he ended up getting hired by Bill Hewlett at Hewlett-Packard at 12 years old. And Steve Jobs always said, entrepreneurs are always willing to help out. Like people, if you ask them, because they've been through it before, they know how hard it is. And if there's someone trying to build something and you say, hey, I could use help doing this, you can almost always find someone that can help you do it. And I think that gets underutilized a lot in the entrepreneurial world, which is just reaching out. And Steve Jobs was, just pulled Bill Hewlett's phone number out of a phone book back then. But now a very well-placed, email to someone can get you a long ways if you need help.
I think what's been on everyone's mind is access to capital. Wherever I go, the conversation's access to capital, right? And our office oversaw $4 billion worth of relief dollars in relation to COVID, right? An extremely tough lift. We're very proud of it. But what I'll tell you in going through that process is, although we got the $4 billion out, not everyone that needed it received it, right? For a lot of reasons that we believe can be resolved. And so small stuff, like I don't have a business bank account, so I couldn't receive a grant, or I didn't do my taxes, so I couldn't show the difference in income year over year, right? And so we're calling these things capital readiness. And so the big thing outside of the ecosystem that's happened is that $1.2 billion has been awarded to the state of California through SSBCI, which is the State Small Business Credit Initiative. Now, this is different than COVID-related money that was grant money, right? This is credit enhancement. So this money is to guarantee loans and incentivize lending institutions to loan to small businesses, right? And so half of that money went to iBank. Their email or their website is ibank.ca.gov, ibank.ca.gov. Whenever I say a website, I gotta slow down. And then the other half went to the treasurer's office, right? And so it's important to know that this money exists and that it's being funneled through CDFIs and regional banks. So I'll tell you a quick story. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I started a business in January of this year. And I went to my national bank with a 730 credit score and a business plan, and I'm ready to go. I've heard all the spiel, let's do it, I need some money, and I was denied. But because of information, I knew of other options, right? So I went to a more regional mission bank lender and got the money I was looking for, right? And so it's our job, because we believe that capital without coaching is a crime. So it's our job to provide the information that can connect folks to the new capital that's available. So know that this money exists, know where it's coming from, and know how to get in contact with it. And that's through our network. We can give you more information through our website, but just know it's available.
All right, we have time for maybe one or two audience questions if you have one. The good Laura always has a question. Go ahead.
So I work with pretty early stage startups, and almost before they're ready for capital infusion. And something that really frustrates me is I'll meet someone who's been working on their business by themselves for a couple of years, and they had no idea about the resources that are available to help them out. And, to myself, I'm like, well, just Google it. But you don't Google something if you don't know it exists. How do we solve that problem of more message out to people who didn't go to university or don't know someone who works for the SBDC? How do we get the message out, particularly in California, that there are, if you want to start a business, there's resources to help you?
I'll give you more from our perspective. It's really about diversifying the messages, right? And so we've got centers all across the state in all different communities, but I'll tell you, I've worked my tail off all year doing events. You guys see me everywhere, and everywhere I go, they'll say, I had no idea that these things even existed, right? And so it can be frustrating, right? Especially when you're driving yourself into the ground to get this message out. But I think as ecosystem builders, it's important for us to create an environment of different voices, of trusted voices, right, in different communities, so that it doesn't always, they're not going to receive it always from the state, or they may not receive it always from a college campus. It may need to be from a local nonprofit, right? And we really encourage those partnerships between our primary centers and secondary, so that the message can come from a diverse group of voices. But at the end of the day, it's just one day at a time, one person at a time to get this information out.
So tell your friends.
Tell your friends. I'll give you two answers. One, we're actually working with a state now, I won't say which, that wants to create an office of entrepreneurship, but for the first time house it within the Secretary of State's office, which is very powerful because the Secretary of State's office is the one that you register with. Mm-hmm. And if you think about the process, is you register with the Secretary of State, but then the help comes from over there, and they don't talk to each other. And so the idea is the Secretary of State in this particular state wanted to take it on because that person had been an entrepreneur themselves, and they realized that that was an entry point into the whole system. And so that's something to consider. Now, that's a lot of different departments. They have lots of different issues connecting the way they talk, but that's potentially a very powerful thing. And there have been other states that people have had rumblings about, can you connect the Secretary of State's office, where the moment someone registers, you immediately, just like when you move addresses, the post office sends you that whole welcome pack. Yeah. When you register a business, why don't you get a welcome pack with all these resources, right? So policy fix, not easy. Simple idea, hard to do, but could be huge, right? If you get a welcome pack when you start a business. The second thing and I'm not the only one to notice this, but a lot of the data shows where people are learning how to start businesses now more than ever before is on TikTok. And I think that has not been, if you look at nonprofits, it's something like only like 13% of nonprofits are actually on TikTok right now, but that's where there's so much entrepreneurial information there and learning that's happening. And what's great is it's like television. You just sort of, and if people are interested in the topic, you'll find them, right? It kind of pops up in their algorithm. It's remarkable. It's kind of a creepy algorithm, but it pops stuff up. I got a haircut, and then it started taking me to barber. How did they know? I got, anyways. But TikTok, I think, is powerful, and I think, I know it's supposed to shut down or get sold, but that's probably not going to happen. It's too powerful, and there's too many Gen Zers that rely on it, live their lives on it. You can't shut this thing down. So, but it's a very powerful tool that has not been used much from the entrepreneurial, nonprofit, or educational sector. But there's so much educational information out there, and I think that's just going to continue to grow.
All right, one last question, and then we'll transition.
It is.
When you think about how old all of you were when you first decided to be an entrepreneur, I was 9, and I didn't stop. I thought, how am I going to make money? Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not a 4-year college student. I'm a 2-year college student. I can't stand being in a classroom. There are lots of kids who can't stand being in a classroom. There are lots of kids who don't want to be in a classroom. So I think where this needs to go is right from the get-go. We can build them to think 4-year college. We can build them to think entrepreneurship. College living is too late to build entrepreneurs.
Yeah, you know what? I 100% agree with you. For that reason, one of my passion projects in our office is called The Future Is Now. It's a youth entrepreneur recognition series right now, and it will ultimately be a youth entrepreneur program for that very reason, right? Because entrepreneurship is taught way too late to folks. And it's once you go through the traditional route, if that doesn't work, oh, think about entrepreneurship. At that point, it's too late, right? And so part of this program, we've got a guy that he and Ho that started making these backpacks at 10 years old. He's 17 now. They're selling thousands of backpacks to the school districts now. We had the Jimenez sisters in Southern California. They're 17, 15, and 12. They were goat farmers. They now make skin products out of the goat milk. After our episode, they just went on a local television show, like a shopping network, and sold 2,000 bars of soap in an hour. And so this is the things that we're trying to build for that very reason, right?
You have to ask yourself with education, we're trying to make kids learn trigonometry, but they don't know how to balance a checkbook or read a profit and loss statement,
Talk about it.
right? We've got essentially like our systems are so antiquated right now. And this is the entrepreneurial economy where, financial literacy, basic financial skills are more important than trigonometry for most people, right? And so but there's such a resistance to change. So what's happening now is this movement coming up from across the educational establishment, which is very much an underground movement, which is to change the way education is done to do more applied learning. So project-based learning, right? Design thinking. So at Marshall University in West Virginia, they just now, it's the first major university that I know of that now requires every freshman to learn design thinking. And the idea is that you learn how to solve any problem that's ever given to you. And I've met people that have gone through it and they say it's changed their lives because they didn't know that there was a way to solve every problem that was given to them. And so, there's a network now of schools called the CAPS network. It's like 120, 150 schools across the country where they're trying to do real world applied learning K through 12. But the issue now is that the system they're doing it despite the system, right? They're not doing it because of the system. They're actually finding ways to do applied real world learning despite the way that credentialing is done, despite the way that teacher training is done. You have to. So, but you don't have to, we shouldn't have to, right? We should be able to change the system to adapt. And so that's actually a big part of, I think, what's ahead is when I talk about entrepreneurship as a 360 problem, how do we get, credentialing, testing, teacher training to focus on applied project-based real world learning, financial skills that let people do stuff and solve problems. And I think that's the shift that we as a society have to make in the next few years.
Cameron, I know we're wrapping up. So I know we are.
Who wants to be here all
I
night?
know we are. I just want to leave this one thing to the entrepreneurs in the room. It's been helping me out this year on my entrepreneurial journey is we all know knowledge is power, right? But execution trumps knowledge every day of the week. It's not enough to just know what to do. You have to execute. So let's execute.
There we go. That's a great way to conclude this. So thank you, Jermaine. Thank you, Victor, for the awesome discussion up here and also for getting us inspired with the keynote. So we'll transition to our lightning innovation cluster panel discussion. So we have up first the food and ag panel. So that'll be moderated by John Sullivan, the co-founder and board chair of AgStart. So welcome, John, on up. There we go. And then we have Kara Leong, the executive director of the UC Davis Integrated Center for Alternative Meat and Protein, other known as ICAMP. And then we have Gabe Utzi, the Chief Innovation Officer for the University of California Department of Ag and Natural Resources, UCANR. So let's welcome them to the stage, and I'll grab them the next mic.
Thank you so much, Cameron. Really appreciate this event and putting this all together. It took a tremendous amount of organization. Cameron is not only the MC, but he's also the stage crew, putting up chairs. So. I know we have a few short minutes, but I just wanted to share with you some of the key developments in terms of entrepreneurship in the ag and food technology sector that have happened this past year and what we anticipate coming up in the future year. And I wanted to just, first of all, hand it to Kara to share some of the things that have been going on with ICAMP and UC Davis.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Rosanna. Good to see you. Oh, goodness. So nice to see so many familiar faces in the crowd. So I'm Kara Leong. I'm the executive director for the Integrative Center for Alternative Meat and Protein. We're headquartered at UC Davis, but we're a partnership between 7 different institutions. Probably about 2/3 of our researchers are at UC Davis, but we're also partnered with UCLA, 2 branches of USDA, the Culinary Institute of America, Solana Community College, which has a really strong bioprocessing technical program. We're also partnered with University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and we're partnered with UCA&R in the plant. We are the very first center of excellence to launch. We launched in January after about 7 months of planning. It's the first center that's focused on all routes to proteins. That includes plant-based. So if you're thinking about like Impossible or Beyond, fungal, which is corn, which has been in Europe for probably 40 plus years. You can think about precision fermentation as well. So think about like Perfect Day, which is producing casein and whey proteins that are dairy proteins, but without the cow. And we also do cultivated meat research. We have the first academic body in cultivated meat research that received the first state and federal funding. So a lot of work on food innovation. So, and I'm more than happy to share more about that.
Well, just before we pass it on, I just wanted to talk about not only is the research going on the UC Davis campus, but in your iCamp partnership program, you're working with a number of different entrepreneurs who are taking the technologies in terms of both plant-based protein, fungal-based protein, and cell-cultured meat.
Yes.
And they're starting to develop those entrepreneurial opportunities here in the Sacramento region.
Yes, we have had several startups that have launched out of the research being done on campus, including Optimized Foods. And there are many food innovation companies that have come out of the region. Balletic Foods, Oobly, which is making sweet proteins to reduce down sugar consumption. Better Meat Company, which is doing large mass biomass fermentation, so they can take essentially a milk jug of inoculant and put it into a 9,000 liter reactor, which is probably like 2.5 stories high and about 6 feet wide. And that entire bioreactor will be completely full of protein within 17.5 hours. And that can be mixed into, I mean, I like to remind people, when was the last time you had a chicken tender that was 100% chicken, or a meatloaf that was 100% beef? So if you're thinking about food innovation, that's a really great way to do it. Apologies. I've been in 3 different startups myself, including ag tech, biopharma, and then I was chief of staff of an alternative protein company in John's incubator. And Turtle Tree is a Singapore-based company, so 40% of the employees are in Singapore, 40% of them are here, and then another 10-20% are scattered all over the world. It made coordinating them a lot of fun, but they're working on dairy bioactive proteins, specifically lactoferrin, which is a very high-value protein that's found in milk. It's one of the only few proteins that's allowed in infant formula. Really, really key for immunity, but extremely expensive and extremely hard to get access to. So they're just amazing different opportunities that people are exploring, and we're hoping that the food innovation that is so, that is based so strongly in the Sacramento region will continue to thrive and form even more companies, because there really isn't a better place for any of this to be.
Not only is it companies starting here based on the research coming out of UC Davis, but I've seen companies that are being attracted to come to this region to pursue their entrepreneurial journey in the alternative protein because of iCamp. We're supporting Nexture Bio, which is a company, think of the primary producers of cell-based meat, but they also need supplies and ingredients, reagents, and scaffolding. And Nexture Bio is a company that was formed specifically to target alternative meat and protein, and they have moved here. They're basically establishing their facilities here because they see this region as the region where these technologies will blossom.
Yes. 40% of all the world's, not just the domestic, but 40% of all the world's alternative protein, and you could think of it as food innovation with a protein emphasis, companies are here in the state of California, and most of them are in the Bay Area, but they're getting to the point where they're needing to scale, and it's too expensive in the Silicon Valley. So really looking at this region, because most of these companies want to be within a 2-hour drive. So you're seeing a lot of expansion here, and of course, hubbing around, this incredible ecosystem that's here in the Valley. So just this past year, we were the first to launch in January, but then University of Arkansas launched. Bezos put $30 million into 3 different centers, so nearly $100 million into alternative protein centers, North Carolina, the UK, and in Singapore. There are hubs that are forming in Chicago and in close to Purdue, and probably going to be in Texas A&M and things of that nature. But the one thing that we have seen with all of these centers is that they don't necessarily have the sheer amount of early stage innovation that you are seeing here. So early stage, really groundbreaking innovation is still, we're still the world leaders for that.
We have the ecosystem for it.
We do.
So that was what happened this past year. Are there any developments we should look for next year?
Oh, goodness, so many. We have 4 main buckets. Of course, we do research and technology. We do education and workforce training, but we do a huge amount of public outreach. So much of the food sector is still undergoing a lot of regulatory hurdles, and we're 15 minutes over the freeway from the 5th largest economy in the world. So it is, a lot to be done here. And Gabe is going to talk a lot more about all the facility infrastructure that is coming to the region. What we hope to be is the earliest stage innovation, where that spark of an idea happens, and we help them, get in touch with this ecosystem. Then we'll roll out to you, and then we'll roll out to Gabe.
Well, thanks. We'll turn it over to Gabe. Thank you, Kara.
Hi there. Gabe Yotzi, I'm the Chief Innovation Officer for UC Agriculture and Natural Resources. We're part of the University of California that's been in existence for over 100 years. We exist in every county in California, including Sacramento County. Our job is to translate the science and technology out of the university into the hands of industry and the public related to food, agriculture, and natural resources. My job is to support the commercialization and scale up of novel food system technologies that span anything from crop breeding, farming, food processing, consumer food production, and even reuse of waste streams all across the board.
So some exciting developments that we've had this past year that I know that you've been involved in, but we recently finished the FIRA conference. If you can explain what FIRA and the mechanization efforts are.
Yeah, so those of you who may or may not know, this region provides, as Kara and John have both alluded to, a pretty unique draw globally in the world because of the presence of UC Davis, the uniqueness of Sacramento, the proximity to the Bay Area, the proximity to food production up and down the valley, which is really the largest food production economy in the United States. So we are the top ag producer in the United States, if you didn't know that, from a variety of different specialty crops. One of the top issues right now, because California is at least 10 times more expensive to produce the same things that they produce in Mexico or South America, we have to get a lot smarter about how we produce our food, and the chemicals we put on them, the water, the labor that's applied, all of those things are under pressure. So we have recently launched in California, North America's largest ag robotics and automation conference. Started in Fresno 3 years ago. We had 1,000 people show up. We were thrilled. Last year we did it in Salinas, 1,700 people showed up. We just had it this past October in Woodland at the Yolo County Fairgrounds, where we grew a field of vegetables in a parking lot. And every ag robotics company startup really in the world with any salt selling something showed up here. We had people from all over the world. Over 2,000 people came to really advance this topic forward. They love the venue so much, the proximity to Sacramento, the entrepreneurial ecosystem here. GoFar, Western Growers, and UC-A&R, we're going to rehost the same event here again next year. It may become the permanent home because it's such a great place to be here in the Sacramento Valley. We welcome you to join the FIRA conference. It's going to be in October again in Woodland. If you've never seen a laser zapping a weed, it's super cool. So, come and see it.
And then other developments that are underway here locally. I know that Kara mentioned a lot of the research coming out of UC Davis. It might incubate in a wet lab, either at AgStart or some of the other half dozen startup incubators. But to scale up, there's still a gap here in the region. So perhaps you can talk about your plant proposal.
Yeah, well, John Sellup, humble moderator here, is the forerunner who really has single-handedly created the largest wet lab incubator dedicated to food and agriculture in Central Valley of California. So big kudos to John for paving the way here.
We got to take that credit before Aggie Square opens up, because it's probably going to have more wet lab space than we have now. But
Not
for
fully
today,
dedicated
until next
to
spring.
adding food, but it's yeah. So John really paved the way. The plant is really meant to be, when I started this job, I worked statewide, so I look at the innovation ecosystems in Salinas and Fresno, in San Diego and Riverside, all over the state of California, and saw really the unique global position of the ecosystem here. And frankly, those of us who work for the university, we get calls from all over the world all the time from someone wanting to come see UC Davis and see something. So we knew we have something special, and that if we could create that next level deep tech ag and food commercialization ecosystem, we could really create something even more special and more unique and more scaled, and create the stickiness that we're after for entrepreneurs in the region, which often for the deep science and tech facilities like at-scale biomanufacturing or large-scale wet labs or food processing, they have to go somewhere else. So we decided to create an envision and start the journey on an innovation center that was unique, and that's called the plant. So what we've envisioned is about 120,000 square foot facility that has 100,000 by itself square foot greenhouse facility, high tech, just like the Dutch do it in the Netherlands, if you've ever seen that. Envy of the world for indoor farming, just like Gotham Greens down the street on 80. Couple that with a world-class sort of food kitchen, experimental kitchen, food processing, innovation lab, wet lab space, shared science facilities, and maybe the crown jewel would be a bioindustrial manufacturing facility at pilot scale and for contract manufacturing. And when I say pilot scale, I'm talking big pilot scale. This is 20,000 to 40,000 liters. And if you know your bioindustrial manufacturing, that's big. So most of the companies that have gotten started with these facilities, there's one in the Bay Area called ABPDU at 300 liters where Impossible Meats and other companies got started. We're talking 20 to 40,000, much, much bigger. It'll attract corporate and startups from all over the world to be right here in Sacramento. So we're halfway through the fundraising on that journey. It will be off the UC Davis campus. 2 sites in Yolo County that are being considered, West Sacramento and Woodland, and we're excited to hopefully launch that in 2026 to be really a global home to food and agriculture innovation that will be a new draw to the region.
And the last thing that we've heard on the culinary front is this new word, food frontier.
Yeah. Well, so a band of us innovators in the region really crossed aisles. I mean, if you think about the hospitality and culinary community in Sacramento, it's really an amazing, unmatched in the region, asset that we have. Couple that with the innovation space, and you really have something that spans the food system that's really special, from the science and technology to the hospitality and the restaurant scene. So 2 entrepreneurs in the region you may know or have heard of. Megan from Honey
Megan
Agency. What's Megan's last name? Phillips. Thank you, Megan Phillips, and Brad Checky from Canon and Franket partnered together with a big band of us and decided to create a new front-facing brand for the region called the Food Frontier. And the Food Frontier it's exciting because in other regions around the world, one notable place is called Food Valley in Wageningen, which ripped off Silicon Valley. Is a world-class destination for food and ag innovation. And we said, we actually have that and more in spades because of the hospitality and the farm to fork culture that we have. If you pair that with innovation, you create the food frontier. So now we have this brand that unites innovation and hospitality in a new and creative way that we're ready to spin out and face the world with and attract people from all over the world to come and to be here. The first big event that's coming is the Slow Food Terra Madre event next year in 2025, which is on the culinary side, but really a global draw for culinary entrepreneurs that takes place in Italy. First time in the US, it's going to be in Sacramento. So that's exciting.
Coming right here to our River City. I think sometime next fall is what I understood, but we'll get the dates. So there's a lot of exciting things happening that have happened this past year, are happening this coming year. The opportunities for innovation in our global ag and food system is tremendous. And a lot of that innovation, a lot of those ideas, and a lot of the entrepreneurial companies that are charting that are starting out right here.
What was the
So-
name of the culinary event, please?
Terra Madre, it's called Terra Madre. And I forgot exactly when it's going to happen, but we'll follow up on that.
Yeah, you could probably Google it or whatever, as someone said. But
Yeah.
yeah, Slow Food Terra Madre.
Are we plugging it in?
Ones that we help put on, yes.
But you know, events raise the profile for our region, and entrepreneurs both here and far away see what's happening here in our local region. Investors see if there's things happening in Sacramento, and so they pay attention to what entrepreneurs here are doing. So it's really important to elevate and communicate the exciting things that are going on in our region.
Yes, yes. For example, we're throwing our second Protein Central this Friday. And I apologize, I'm already beyond capacity right now, but we'll throw another one in March 12th. It's open to the public that's specifically interested in food innovation and biomanufacturing. So Future Food Tech, which is the largest future food innovation event that happens in San Francisco in March. We're hosting our event at the same time because we get so many industry visitors at that time. So we're hosting one on March 12th. We'll host another one on May 27th, and then we have a couple listed in the fall. And then we'll have our our fifth industry academic summit, which is September 9th of every year. So if you want to learn more about this food ecosystem, from this, the science and research and innovation end, keep an eye out.
Fantastic. Well, I want to close up. I know I'm moderator, but I can also share a couple of other things that we've been involved in with AgStart. Again, for those of you who don't know me, I'm John Sellup. I'm the president of AgStart, which for 12 years has been the anchor for the ag and food technology ecosystem here in the Sacramento region. We're very grateful to the Office of the Small Business Advocate and the Carlson Center because we've been part of the iHub here locally. We've been anchoring the ag and food sector this past year. And through some of those activities sponsored by the Cal OSBA and the iHub, we were able to win a Small Business Administration Award, a national recognition for our Greater Sacramento region and the Sacramento Valley region as a regional innovation cluster for ag and food tech. And that gives us additional resources over a multi-year contract with the federal SBA to really provide more services for small business, for entrepreneurs in the agri-food tech sector here in the region. So we're getting national recognition for the exciting things that are happening here, and we're looking forward for provide more services to the agri-food entrepreneurs here in the region, both connection to mentors, connections to a future pitch event, and potentially even opportunities for additional funding that we can help guide them to in the next year. So any questions? I don't know how much time we have, Cameron, but
You're at time, but if there is a question, we can take it.
or we can take it after at the break. We'll be around. So.
Sounds good. Well, let's give it up for the food.
Thanks to the
Thank
panelists.
you. Yeah, thank you, Gabe. Thank you, Kara. Thank you, John, for moderating. So next up for our next Innovation Lightning panel, we have the Health and Life Sciences Innovation Cluster. So this is going to be moderated by Nikki Sims, the director of Connect Labs, which is going to be a part of leading the Aggie Square kind of area. And then we have Carl Jessen, who's the director of the UC Davis Venture Catalyst, and then Brad Niles, the CEO of Arise Precision Med. So I'll have you all come on up and let's welcome them to the stage. So thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. Okay, like Cameron mentioned, I am new director to the Connect Labs space at Aggie Square, which is an entrepreneurial development organization that is really focused on supporting knowledge communities and research parks for health and life science communities. Brad, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi there, Brad Niles, CEO of Arise Precision Medicine. We're a Davis-based company in the therapeutics space. We're working on a product for lung cancer that targets a novel target that is disrupting about 70% of lung cancer patients. So a real potential to do something substantial for patients that are afflicted with lung cancer.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carl Jessen. I'm the new head of Venture Catalyst at UC Davis. And primarily we work with startups that used intellectual property out of, so patents and stuff out of the UC Davis system. But we're also heavily involved with all of the accelerators and the various groups that are working on to educating and getting our new entrepreneurs going around the region. And part of that is with the Aggie Square stuff.
Great. And Cameron, where are you? How much time do we really have? Because I think we're a little late.
Theirs was 20 minutes, so 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay, 15. All right. Okay, great. We can do it. I believe in us. Okay, great. So, thinking about the landscape in Sacramento, I know we've heard a lot today about the needs for capital and capitalizing new companies. But if we take that aside, one of the things that we think about is really like making sure that these companies do as much as they can with what they've got. And there's a lot happening in the region right now to support these young entrepreneurs developing their businesses. So Brad, why don't you start by kind of letting us know what are the things that you wish you would have known and that you've learned about, and how you can get support, or the things that you've actually leveraged along the way in your journey?
That is a massively large question.
You got this.
All right, so we'll try and narrow it down a little bit. I'll give you a little bit of the backstory on what we did with Arise, and hopefully that answers some of the questions there. So Arise was started, my co-founder came to the Davis area in 2016. We were able to meet up with, through UC Davis Venture Catalyst, the H.M. Klaus Life Science Innovation Center. So we got our start there. We had a chance to really go into a turnkey laboratory. All we had to buy was the consumables, give us a chance to really kind of develop our proof of concept data before we could get any funding. And so it was a great opportunity to do that, get connected to some of the other innovators in the area, get connected within the ecosystem, and learn about where some of these funding opportunities are and partnership opportunities. We were very fortunate to be able to align with some of the funders in the area. Moneta Ventures led our seed round. Growth Factory was an investor a short time back. A number of others. We think of ourselves as kind of a homegrown Sacramento area. Majority of our funding actually is from the Sacramento area. So we're very grateful to the area and all that it's provided on the funding side. Also, through the resources at UC Davis, we've used a number of the core facilities that are available there on campus at a discounted rate. And so that's been a great resource. I think we are in a new era in the Sacramento area, and in terms of the funders that are available now, but also some of the resources that are coming online with Aggie Square, some of these other opportunities. It's been great to see the community grow over time. We've got these incubators in the facility, including John's. Beautiful facility. If nobody's been there, please go ask them for a visit. And Inventopia in Davis is another great option. And so for companies that are just getting launched, spinning out of a university lab or whatnot, there's a lot of opportunities to actually get started, get your data, get some funding, and then hit the ground running.
Awesome, great. So outside of facility, infrastructure, support, and you can hit on that a little bit if you want, but I want to talk a lot about the resources that the university provides for these young entrepreneurs, because being a technical founder means you're really good at developing maybe this IP, but there's all of these other things to starting a business. Can you provide a little color?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we try to do, everybody starts in the same place, and we've been able to work with a network of legal folks to get people, allow people to get filed probably for nothing on a pro bono basis. Allow people to get mentors, get hooked up with mentors that can help them to understand and go through this. If you've never done it before, a guide is a really helpful thing. And specialized work. So as you try to apply for some of these new programs, the non-dilutive programs like the SBIR, STTR, how do you do that? How do you get the grants done, written right, and hooked up with the people who do that? And then also with things like I-Corps programs, which is another one of those entrepreneurial training programs. There's a lot of this stuff that you have to go through the dance steps to do, no matter what your technology is. So we try to provide a lot of help in getting people out there and trying to understand what they need to know that they don't know, especially if they're a good technical person. They probably know how to make whatever it is very well.
But maybe not so much how to turn it into a business. Great. Okay, well, let's talk about fun and exciting things that are happening in the health and life science world outside of infrastructure and support here. What are some of the cool new technologies that you've seen out in the world?
Well, the easiest answer is AI. Of course, we've all been enlightened as to the capabilities and the prospects within the AI space. In drug development, where I stand, a ton of companies into that space, a ton of innovation in that space, but also covers many other elements to the drug development process, including clinical trial, patient selection. What used to be such a battle for patients in order to find clinical trials to get enrolled in, those processes have become so much easier. Just with help of AI and some of these other new approaches that are coming along. Another exciting area where we have some expertise is in the nanoparticle fields. A lot of development there for drug delivery, and so my passion is in precision medicine. So that's an area where I've spent a lot of time. But really, it's about getting the drug to the right cell at the right time and at the right dose. And so that's the mantra of precision medicine, and nanoparticles are the way we achieve that. And so other developments, robotics is really quite interesting. Anything in the automation space right now. We're trying very hard to, as a society, to get away from kind of the mundane tasks that can be automated, can be made more efficient. And really make our lives easier and better, and allow us to focus on things like entrepreneurship, where the real battles are, and the execution can really be aided by some of these new ideas that are being out there. So a lot of people talk about why all the money is going into the AI space, but it touches in so many areas, and so it's hard to argue with an investment in a country as a culture into that space. I don't know if you have any to add to that.
Well, I mean, just on the AI thing, what's really been interesting to see is the difference it makes on people who are doing analysis of data, and the ability for them to go through 10x, 100x, 1000x more stuff that they've ever been able to do. That's been crazy. Being new here, I've had a chance to talk to a bunch of different groups at UC Davis. The thing that got me excited yesterday was talking to the vet med people. And there's some interesting work being done in cell and gene therapy, of course, but also in the life extension of large animals, things like that. And how can you have them do longer? And they can use techniques you can't use, for the human on the human side. One thing we just in the middle of trying to get some patents done on a unique way to inoculate against avian flu that is really simple. It's like a spray bottle kind of thing. So those kinds of things are really exciting, and I'm really excited to see how that also potentially goes over to the human side of it as well. I think there's some ebb and flow in that particularly. Yeah.
I'll just add one other point too, in terms of drugs that have been developed and failed through the process. There's such a push now towards kind of rescuing some of those drugs that have had $200 million put into them, have made it to human trials and have shown to be safe, but maybe they weren't as effective, or maybe they were effective but they weren't safe. So designing new ways to slightly tweak the molecule, but also to find the patient populations that are be the most applicable to that. So that's something I came across the other day that I'm really excited about the potential there.
That's great. So we have a really unique opportunity between the intersection with UC Davis being a world-renowned academic institution, plus the health system there, Wexford, who's the developer of the research park, these innovators that are coming in and building their businesses within this knowledge community. What's your perspective, Carl, on how this might be able to accelerate the advancements in new technologies in the Sacramento region?
Well, I have to say, thanks for setting that one up, because that's one of the reasons why I came here, because the investments that they've made in things like Aggie Square and looking at the amount of research funding that UC Davis gets, I think that what's interesting for me is that I think the facilities at Aggie Square do a couple things that are different. I don't think they displace, probably not any of the things that are out there. They add on to that. But they also provide a way and some really spiffy places for companies that want to, say, raise VC money and things like that, to show their stuff off in super class A space and all that. And I'm really excited about that. I know the medical side is very excited, and we have trouble keeping them from taking all that extra space because it's already the space that's been assigned to UC Davis is already double booked already. So it's really kind of fun. So I think what this does is just kind of elevates the market side of this, the visibility of it, and that kind of thing. What's interesting for me is that having got to know some of the accelerators who are out there, there's a place for all of these. I mean, it's a brand new entrepreneur is not walking out of a lab and walking into Aggie Square. They don't have that kind of money. So, but the people who need to have that type of place and those kinds of facilities are the ones that are going to really be able to leverage it. So it's really exciting. And it's really also exciting because they keep telling me it's on time and under budget.
That's right.
Which is exciting.
Brad, as an entrepreneur, what are your thoughts around an intersection like this and how it might be able to support the work that you're doing in the region?
Yeah, I think it provides a very valuable option. Potentially, as Carl just mentioned, not for the very first launch out of the university, but for that that next graduation level. When we were leaving our incubator, it was very difficult at that time to find lab space that was in the 2,000 to 3,000 square foot spot, maybe a couple individual offices, and then a private lab. And so we ended up just kind of have to create that ourselves. But I'm really glad to see that that there are new options now that take a lot of that work off the table for us. As a facility operator, there's quite a bit of effort that goes into just the day-to-day. Who's ordering toilet paper, who's cleaning the floors, who's doing those lease payments, and all those various different elements that really distract us away from the work that we really want to be doing. And so having that sort of space where someone can help manage that, but also to kind of bring in those resources, bring in the law firms, bring in the service providers. That we never even would have had a thought to go out and talk to that particular group, or we're looking for a manufacturer. Who do we go to? Oh, I can ask 3 different people questions and get referrals to that. So it really makes it so you don't feel like you're on your own, and really adds to the community.
Awesome, thank you. Hurry.
On time and under budget.
Lovely. Any audience questions?
So we're a company that's looking to get into nutrition and kind of implement an AI into the space. Do you guys have any, resources when it comes to accessing, databases to train AI or to, kind of go through those documentations, right? Especially in the food and allergy space, and especially ones that, interact with medication, because I know that's a big thing.
Where's our previous panelist?
All right, yeah, that might be an AgStart question.
Yeah, we don't directly.
Oh, there you are. I see you. Do you have an answer to that question?
I don't have a direct answer, but we can connect and talk. I'm sure
Yeah.
that there are databases somewhere in the universe.
There is a startup that it came to an iCamp event where Kara was, and they actually they've built AI algorithms for different strains of fungus and how that does something with metabolites. That is all I know, but they were really brilliant. So these startups exist, right? And the more that we have these folks together and the more that we're supporting and bringing everybody in the same room, we can say, oh, I remember I saw that person at Kara's event when I was talking to John, and we all sat at a table and we learned that now you have somebody that can support you, and it's a college student and they're starting their own startup and you guys can do this work together, right? So I think collisions like that are beautiful things, and of course have a conversation, but I think that's what we're doing well here, and those types of collisions will continue to happen as we raise up these different types of parks and we all work together as different ecosystem partners to be able to elevate the community. Any other questions?
All right, let's give it up for the. All right. Let's give it up for our health and life sciences one more time. So thank you. All right, and last but not least, we have our clean tech and zero emission vehicle, and we've talked and heard a lot about these different nodes, and as well as the different core assets that they're creating. One of the ones in partnership with Sac State is the California Mobility Center, and in the effort to advance the ramp up factory. And so I imagine that'll be a part of our discussion here. But leading our discussion is Rosanna Herber, the board president of SMUD. So let's welcome her on up to the stage. So thank you for moderating our discussion. And then we have Annette Smith, the director of Electrify California. So welcome Annette on up. And then Gary Simon, the executive chairman of Clean Start. So thank you all for here, and we'll have our quick lightning panel, and then we'll call it an evening. So thank you all.
Hey, everybody. Hey, this is even better. Are you still awake? Come on, have you had enough to eat? There's plenty of stuff out there. I'm Rosanna Herber, and I'm the SMUD board president, and I am so excited to be here for so many reasons. First of all, I'm one of those people who doesn't know a lot about entrepreneurism. And so now I have a whole bunch of information I can share with others. And the other thing that I want to say is, you people who are entrepreneurs, you are the angels of the world. I could not do what you do. And so give yourself a pat on the back and a round of applause. So SMUD is a sponsor of this conference because we really believe in innovation, and we believe we need innovation to reach our 2030 zero carbon goal. And for some of you out there who might not know about it, go to smud.org and you can join the cleanpowercity.com, which is a group of people in the region who want to go carbonless and who are willing to take a pledge to do things to get rid of carbon in their life. And we'll give you a t-shirt and add you to our big growing list of people who are part of the, clean the charge. We want to be zero carbon by 2030. And so these two folks are going to help us get there. And so what I'd like to do is ask each of you first to give just a small little capsule of the organization that you work for and what your mission is.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rosanna. And as a proud SMUD customer, actually, I refuse to move because I'm not giving up SMUD because I never lose power, never. 80% of my power, SMUD's power, came in 2023, came from renewable resources.
That is correct.
They are actually going to make their 2030 goal. It's absolutely amazing to me, right? So I am Annette Smith. I am the VP of Economic Development and the Director for Electrify California, which is a program designed to support small businesses, micro businesses in the green technology sector through technical assistance, innovation, access to capital, webinar series, all the good things that you kind of have touched around when I finally got here today. And so I'm super excited to be a part of the conversation.
Hi, I'm Gary Simon. I'm a recovering startup CEO. I have to attend meetings like this once a week to remember why I did it and then forget how they turned out. So I retired from doing that sort of work. I've been a big company CEO. I've worked in government. I was in the Carter administration. I came back here after doing the 5 startups and said, number one, I don't want to travel all over the world like I was doing before. And second, I love this area. I want to see what we can do. And so we founded Clean Start as a nonprofit to help people connect with the resources, the coaches, the ideas, investors, agencies, and get something to happen. We're in our 20th year. We're 20 years old. Happy birthday! So one thing that we started was to try to create such a large and successful group of innovative clean tech companies here that they can't get squashed like a bug. All right, so we have grown that sector over our 20-year history by a factor of 5. So it now represents over 7,500 jobs and over $3 billion a year in revenue. Within that, thank you, $2 billion companies have been created. One out of UC Davis Big Bang, and that's Origin Materials, and another that started in business under a different name about the same time we started Clean Start. I think this is President Trump.
Cut your budget, huh?
So they started 20 years ago, and they're now billion-dollar companies. But more importantly, there's another 100 on their way. So with all the problems that now are pointed towards clean tech in America, that seems to be particularly annoying for the president. We want to establish a very strong foundation and keep working to get even more billion-dollar companies here.
Great, and he's just not giving up. He wants you. He wants you in his cabinet. We laugh about this, but we did just have a big election. With the elections, there's always consequences, always. And so I'm really kind of interested in hearing kind of what you see coming, because a great deal of funding for a lot of us comes from the federal government. SMUD last year, we got over $500 million in grants. And so, we are watching very carefully, but I'd like to hear what the two of you are seeing in terms of the future.
Yeah, sure. There's always opportunities in whatever is happening. And in some ways, what happens in Washington, D.C. doesn't affect us that much in some ways. The program I'm running, Electrify California, is a minority business development agency program, so it's federally funded. It's designed for all of you entrepreneurs in the clean green space to provide technical assistance through a series of incubators and accelerators and a cadre of coaches, including this nice gentleman over here, to help you at no cost to entrepreneurs to grow and scale their businesses throughout California. We're looking for the next unicorns. We're looking for the next, business that's going to be maybe $1 million in revenue a year. Like, it could be as small or as big as you want it to be, right? We're going to be your partner in helping make that happen. I think the great thing in this space, being in California, is that, in theory, we will be a little bit insulated by some of those changes that might be coming our way. California is all in on having a zero carbon economy and is making investments and efforts that way. We heard from Cal OSBA earlier. They've actually given us a grant as well to expand this work in rural communities that are often left behind during any kind of technology transformation. So making sure that we can reach out into the Inland Empire, into the far north of California, to find those hidden gems that might be out there. So we are hopeful. I mean, we're putting a lot of front-end efforts and work into what we're doing now before January, so that we can stockpile money, we can do all those kind of things that we otherwise might not be able to do, just in case. But we actually think the next 4 years we are going to continue to see businesses grow and scale, and we are there to help them do that.
So yeah, we see clean tech as particularly in the crosshairs of the new administration. particularly with the appointment of a new Secretary of Energy designate that says there is no climate change and there is no energy transition. So he comes from the oil and gas industry, so you know where that's heading. So, you know, we feel a little put upon. But in the immortal words and the heartfelt notions of Chumbawamba, what I want to say is, we get knocked down, but we get up again. Ain't never gonna keep us down. Come on.
I'm not sure what song you're singing.
Oh, that's it. That's all there is to it. I get knocked down, but we get up again. Never gonna knock us down. Everybody, come on. We get knocked down, but we get up again. Ain't never gonna keep us down.
Okay.
Karaoke.
All right, we are going here. Let me ask you, Gary, about this. Since you've been around the longest, how do you think the collaboration, I meant in the EV field, sorry. You haven't been around longer than me, so I didn't feel that bad. But tell us, you know, how the collaboration between public agencies, private sectors, and research institutions have really contributed to creating a clean tech ecosphere.
Well, this is very important. Things are collapsing perhaps at the federal level, but we're lucky to be in California because the policies are pretty secure here, although they will be under attack. But we have institutions, the ARB, by charging polluters penalties and turning that into incentives and subsidies to those who are lowering their emissions. Research institutions all over the state putting money into clean energy, clean technology. That's been very important. The creation of the entrepreneur centers throughout the state. It's been a very important development that you have those resources available. And then it's supported by things like CALO SBA, by the Energy Commission, by the PUC. So we've got a pretty strong foundation here that we will move forward. Maybe a little bit slower, but we've been having a lot of talks with our teams around the area about what do you do in this kind of environment? Well, first of all, get creative. All right, you're not going to get a $50 million grant from this administration. But what do you have? Customers. Go talk to them. Find out what they need. Don't just assume the product that you're selling now is the one they're really interested in. And an example of that, I'm sitting over there on the side. We're having a wonderful conversation here. I get an email from one of the members of the Clean Tech Cluster here, one of those 100 companies. And he said, you know, I took it to heart. So I went out and checked. I'm in the solar business, and we know solar's gotten whacked for a number of reasons, changes in buyback rates, problems in the grid, et cetera. And he said, you're right. I discovered that there is a large population of people out there who started to put solar on their rooftops and their contractor disappeared. He said, there's a whole population of orphan solar projects. I'm going to change my business plan to help those people finish their projects because they're not going to get the tax credits that still exist. They're not going to get the benefits of reduction in carbon emissions and the reduction in the bill if we don't get these things finished. What a marvelous example of what you can do if you just get a little bit clever under the stresses that we're facing right now and come up with a whole new idea. But it's all made possible by we have this infrastructure that isn't changing all that much with the new administration. But people do have to think differently about how you go out there, find a product, market it, and you're going to have to exist more on sales than on grants. So figure out something you can sell, whether that's consulting services, your own time, a change, a pivot in your business, or maybe it's some product that you were thinking about doing, but you thought it was too small. Now, all of a sudden, it seems like it might be a little bit easier to get to market. So it's all of that kind of thinking that we think has to be applied in this stressful situation. But we're so lucky that there are still a lot of resources available in the state to take advantage of when you come up with that new idea.
Well, and wouldn't it be nice if there was like a center for innovation that might be able to help with that?
Like just here in Sacramento?
Possibly, that would be a good idea, right?
Yeah.
So use your resources. I think, I'm a native of California, so I'm a little bit arrogant about that. I get mad if there's any state who does anything better than us, because we're California, damn it. And we lead the way, right? No matter what it is that we're doing. And we can lead the way in this space as well. That's why I said, regardless of what happens back there, and who might be in charge, we are the 5th largest economy in the world, and we need to act like it. And it's a global economy. Just because there's some fools in DC, people who don't believe what's happening is happening right in front of their very eyes. We'll say that. When it was, 100 degrees in October here, and we had the most hurricanes than we've had in a while. But people who want to pretend it doesn't exist, but there's other countries that you can sell to, right? Start looking at your exports. Where are those sales that could be not here, right? Could be someplace else to expand your business. So you don't let what happens in Washington, good, bad, or otherwise, however you may feel about it, it should be a non-factor in the success of your business, right? You should be able to figure out how to pivot, how to find the resources, whether it's through Clean Start, Ag Start, the Electrify California, whatever program, pick one, anyone, all of them. I would reach out to all of them just to see who could help me the most. But there are absolutely opportunities for you to be successful regardless of where you're at in your business cycle. And one of those resources is sitting here to the right, because SMUD does a lot of investments in small business. Their small business utilization is fantastic, and their resources for small businesses is amazing. And what else was I going to say? It's going to be amazing. Hold on. It went right out of my head.
No worries. While you're thinking, I do want to say that SMUD has set a goal that 20% of what we spend on contracts will go to local firms. So that gives you an edge, especially if you're doing something around electric vehicles, because electric vehicles and that whole industry is very close to our heart. So let me ask you the next question. We are seeing adoption of electric vehicles. More and more are being sold and bought. One thing, though, that is a question that comes up a lot when I'm out and about in the community is the infrastructure to support electric vehicles. What do you think we need to do in the Sacramento region to infrastructure-wise to promote more use of electric vehicles?
I think that we've had those same conversations and questions. And that statewide, California needs about 250,000 public EV charging stations. As someone, I don't currently have an EV, I have a hybrid, but as someone who drove an EV for a number of months while my car was in the shop, I can tell you range anxiety is a thing. It really is when you get to like 1 mile left, right? Because the charger you were going to was out of service. You had to go to the next one 20 miles down the road. And you have 1 mile left. So that's an issue. We do need some public investments, some public-private partnerships to invest in the infrastructure. I think we also need to invest in supporting innovation in charging stations. We have one client who has developed, actually he's got his kiosk over on Del Paso Road, who's basically, it's a kind of a charger in a box, and he can make the pipeline as big or as small as you want it to be. You can charge a bus, you could charge a car, and it's solar powered, and it can stand alone, right? So that's going to help fuel EV charging in rural communities or in the far north, right? Most of California is rural, and we don't really think about that. And we have an unstable power grid. So how can we use some innovative technique like that to help solve some of those issues as we expand EV adoption? Why the infrastructure hasn't, our state, we do some really great things. Sometimes though we have these great ideas and we want to be zero carbon and we want to go all in on EVs and we're going to give you all these resources and support to make that happen. And then we don't think about, oh, but wait, what happens? We don't have the infrastructure. And so we've done a great job at incentivizing people to buy EVs. Even on the secondary market, there's some things that are going to be coming out the next year and a half that's going to make that even easier to adopt. And we haven't done a good job at thinking about, like, well, what does that infrastructure look like? What do we need it to be? Anything to add to that?
So the thing I will add to that, and to your comment of a generous program for buy local, I would like to see SMUD in particular create a program not just to buy local, but to try local. There's an awful lot of innovation going on where people just need an opportunity to put their very innovative mobile charging system into multifamily structures and solve the problem of charging in those situations. To encourage people to say, if you want to build a fast charging station, here's 12 places in Sacramento where, it would be easy for us versus, I don't like that rock, bring me another rock. Make it easier for people to try that sort of stuff out. I see dozens of innovations around here that would make big dents in the infrastructure problem, but they need that little boost to give it a try and see if it doesn't work. They'll learn a lot, probably modify the product, and maybe then you can get around to purchasing the product at the end of the day. But we have a whole group of companies that have gotten some money, they've got some investment, they have some early sales, and they're stuck at what we've begun to call the second valley of death, where it's actually, you need $5 million, $10 million to do a substantial demo to bring this to market. And it's that try local aspect, I think, that would make a lot of gains in solving a problem. If you say, here's the problem, bring your solutions, we'll give it a try.
Well, I think too, the price point for most EVs right now lends themselves to someone who's able to charge at home, right? So you don't have a lot of adoption from people in different socioeconomic status. What we really need, and I'm sure many of you in this room are too young to remember this, we need the YUGO of electrical vehicles. Right? You all remember the YUGO from the 80s? It was like $5,000. You can go, I can go, but we can't go together because it couldn't literally carry us up a hill together. We need that kind of like a $20,000 EV. It doesn't have to go very far, maybe 150, 200 miles, right? For people who live in the urban core, who live in multifamily housing, who can't just roll into their garage and plug in, right? So until we, and maybe there's someone out there who might, I don't know what y'all are doing, but might want to work on a car like that, right? That's really what we need to get that kind of mass adoption for EVs. Once we can make it more affordable for people, then your demand is going to increase for the infrastructure, which will then have to happen to meet it. So, yeah.
We actually have $10,000 and $15,000 electric vehicles. They're used. You got to get over the throwing away the vehicles that are still good, and we need enough technicians to fix them, upgrade their range. But we have those vehicles out there. But there is a perception that if you do something in electric vehicles in communities, you always have to buy a new one.
You do not. However, we do have to end because we gotta eventually get out of this room.
Oh, but wait,
And
but we haven't talked about the mobility center, which is where they're doing actual job training for people who are going to repair those EVs. Sorry.
no worries. Cameron, do we have time to?
Quickly on that one, and then
Okay, please, quickly.
Yeah, there's a company out of LA that they have partnered with Charger Help at the Mobility Center to do exactly that, to train people on how to work on EVs, how to repair them, how to keep them running. We have a client at Electrify who has figured out how to refurbish the batteries for the cost of like your core, like if you just change a regular battery. You can do that, and so it doesn't cost you $10,000 to get a new battery for your car. So there is innovation happening in that space, in the used vehicle EV space. So, you know, if you want more information, I'm happy to share that with you. It's Orville is doing a great job out there at the Mobility Center, and really hopeful that the people that are going through training will either start businesses, we talked about entrepreneurship, and or will be able to find employment on the repair side.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Cameron. Thank you all for being here. And I hope you learned something today.
All right, so just wrapping this up, thank you all for joining us. I know it was a lot of content thrown at your way, so we try to fit it all in one evening, but do appreciate you joining us for our 6th annual Sacramento Entrepreneurial State of the Union. Tomorrow, we're back here at 10:30 for becoming an AI orchestrator, and then we also have a discussion on the circular economy. And then we'd love for you to come join us for Startup Happy Hour at Limelight on Alhambra. And then if you are interested in some speed mentoring, 1 million cups, and then the AngelCon pitch event, that's taking place on Wednesday. And then Thursday, we have a whole set of other resources. So feel free to just type in GEW SAC, and you'll get hit up with all of the great resources there. So thanks for being here and being a part of the discussion. And thanks for all of our moderators and speakers. And I'll see you about the ecosystems. Thank you all.